is unique, so just recognize it and live your dream. We all look alike, but we're different breeds. See, authenticity is the key to peace and a happy life, and many more things. Yeah, that is right. I would never tell you a bad advice.
Welcome to the Dealmaker Zone. My name's Stevenson and I'm your host. Today our show is a little bit different. We're out of the studio and we're out and about in New York City at the corporate headquarters of CompStak, which is a real estate tech startup in New York City. We wanted to get a behind-the-scenes look of what it takes to run and work for a startup. We're going to interview the co-founder and CEO, Mr. Michael Mandel. We're going to talk to some of their team members and have a tour of their nice office. Welcome to the Dealmaker Zone, Michael.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. So I'm originally from Cherry Hill, New Jersey, right outside of Philadelphia, and went to school in Boston at Babson College, where I studied entrepreneurship and lived in the E-Tower, which is actually a live-in business incubator of sorts. Worked with friends to start companies and always sort of intended to be an entrepreneur. From there, I worked for a year in New York at a commercial music production company.
Oh, that's interesting. How do you go from there to...
No real rhyme or reason. I worked for the music production company because I got to know the founder of the company when I was at Babson. I would put on an entrepreneurship conference there, and he was one of our speakers at one of the conferences and thought it was a really cool company. So got to work with him there, and but really I was looking for something entrepreneurial. I intended to start a company, and had always had an interest in real estate. So from there I looked into opportunities in the real estate world that were entrepreneurial and decided to get into commercial real estate brokerage.
How long were you a broker for?
About 5.5 years. So yeah, I did that. I worked in Manhattan for Grubb & Ellis, which is now Newmark Grubb Knight Frank, and did office leasing deals in Manhattan representing both landlords and tenants. And I also did data center deals actually throughout the country.
And from what I've read, it's from the process of working as a commercial broker that you came up with the idea from CompStak. Can you kind of walk us through your reasoning and why you came up with the idea?
Absolutely. So when I was a broker, I was trading information with other brokers in the industry all the time. In particular, commercial lease comps, which are records of commercial lease transactions that have taken place. And unlike in the residential world, where when you think about comps, you think about you're buying a house and you want to see similar houses that have sold, and the transactions that people really care a lot about in residential are sales.
Correct. And you have access information that's easily available.
Right. It's publicly recorded in most states.
Yes.
But in commercial real estate, most deals that take place are leases, and they're not publicly available. So if you're a commercial real estate professional, you trade this information so you have it at your fingertips when you're negotiating deals. But otherwise, it's very hard to come by. So we would trade this information all the time. I was trading it with brokers and other shops over the phone and via email and in market meetings. We actually had a Monday morning meeting every week where all the brokers in my office would sit around a table and just talk about random deals that had taken place. So-and-so did this deal in this building, and so-and-so did this deal. And in sitting in these meetings, I realized this is kind of silly. Like, we're all just talking about random deals, and most of them weren't even relevant to me at the time. I was representing tech companies and creative firms in Midtown South, and everybody was talking about hedge fund deals and private equity deals and law firm deals in Midtown. But at the same time, if I was working on a deal like that in a month, I'd really want access to those deals that people were talking about.
But at the time they were talking about, it wasn't really helpful for you, so you're wasting your time and you're thinking, well, there's some other way in which this information could be made available.
Exactly.
And shared. Exactly.
Yeah. So, the thought behind CompStak was to take this process of trading that everybody was used to doing and take that offline process and move it online. So now with CompStak, those same brokers that were trading comps over the phone and via email, now they submit those comps to CompStak. They earn credits for trading those comps, which is like a virtual currency.
Got it.
And they can use those credits to get other comps back out. So you're still trading. You still get one comp out for every comp you put in, but we've actually made it more fair. And rather than just getting a random comp in return for what you shared, you're actually getting specifically the deals that are most relevant to you.
What has been your former broker, so obviously you had relationships with brokers when you started the company. What was the response initially from other brokers, and what's the response now?
Sure. Well, I'd say the initial response and the response now is actually very similar. First, I think some people were skeptical. They're like, "Well, you just wanted me to put my information out there on a website?" And I'm like, "No, it's not like it's not Wikipedia. It's not. You're not putting your data out there out of the kindness of your own heart. You're putting it out there specifically because you're getting data in return, just like what you're already used to doing." And I think that once people understood what the value proposition was, they really they got it. And It's the same situation now. We have to go through the process of making brokers as well as appraisers and research people, understand what we do, and we go in and we launch on a market by market basis. And every time we launch a market and go talk to people, we have to get them to kind of understand the value proposition. But once they do, they're pretty much on board.
So what's the business model? Brokers share information. So I have some comps, you have some comps. We both upload the info on CompStak. We get some credits. And the more information I provide, the more credits I get, the more access I have.
Yeah.
Right? So how do you make money?
So we actually sell subscription access to our database.
Is it an annual subscription?
It's an annual subscription, yeah. And we sell to, many of the world's largest commercial real estate owners and investors and lenders. So people like Wells Fargo and Equity Office Properties, and I'm thinking about which names I'm allowed to say and which ones I'm not. But many of the world's top banks, private equity funds, and major real estate investors, use our data every day to make real estate investment decisions and to lease their space.
Got it. So I recently read that you guys somewhat changed the business model a little bit. So you mentioned that it was annual memberships. But now people are going to be allowed to purchase individual comps, correct?
Yeah, so we haven't really changed the model. It's still the same thing. Most of our customers and most of our revenue still comes from subscription access. But we now allow people to basically try the site out by buying comps on an individual basis. What we find is that most of the time people want to check it out and they sign up and they can sign up for free and then buy comps as they need them. But very quickly they realize that it's actually a better deal for them to subscribe if they're going to really use this data as a power tool. So for us, it provides us a real opportunity to identify the people who are our best candidates for subscriptions and get them in our pipeline. But it also allows some of the long tail type users, small mom and pop landlords in a market that maybe wouldn't make sense for them to get a subscription. It allows them to just get a couple comps here or there to help do their business. So it's a win-win.
Got it. And you launched a company 4 years ago?
About that, yeah.
Correct. And you guys were part of 500 Startups, which is an accelerator on the West Coast. Can you talk to us about that experience?
Sure. Well, that was a terrific experience. 500 Startups is one of the top accelerators out there. They've now invested in, I think, like 1,600 companies. They're the most prolific, I'd say, investor, right now, just from a quantity standpoint. But there's terrific companies in the portfolio, and we've been able to leverage that portfolio and all the people in it, to get advice and feedback and grow the company. But a few years ago, we spent my co-founder Vadim and I, and Jeff, who's our head of product. It was just really, at the time there were four of us on the team. It was Vadim and me and Jeff and Danny. Danny stayed back here and kind of mind the shop, and Jeff and Vadim and I moved out to California for 4 months, and it was an awesome experience. And actually, funny story in that regard. We found out that we got in basically a day and a half or a day before, I think it was a day before the program started. So we found out on like a Wednesday afternoon or a Tuesday afternoon, and it was starting Thursday morning.
Oh, wow.
So
why did you guys find out so late?
I don't know. I mean, I think at the time, 500 was growing so quickly and things weren't probably as organized as they are today, and they were just kind of doing what they were doing, and it was sort of weird, but we found out we got in and immediately had to make a decision in like an hour as to whether we were going to do it or not, and booked our tickets. And the next thing we knew, the next day we were on a plane out to San Francisco without any place to live, without any idea of what we're doing.
Did you guys Airbnb it? What did you do?
We stayed in a hotel for 2 nights. We found an apartment the first or second day we were there, unfurnished, that we could rent for 4 months, and then we moved in the next day, and we went and bought mattresses that we put on the floor, and bought a couch from IKEA, and we were that was basically it. So it was a pretty crazy experience, and at the time, Jeff had just come back from several months in South America. He had all this stuff packed up and was just getting ready to sort of settle back into reality in New York, and then he up and left again. Vadim had a newborn. I had just gotten a puppy, and it was just kind of insane that we were just like, okay, we're going to tell our families that we're leaving.
You're leaving for 4 months.
But they were pretty good sports about it.
And it was worth it, right?
It was great.
Were you guys able to raise money while you were at 500, or did you raise your first one after you left 500 Startups?
We raised some money before we got in.
Okay.
We had raised about $500,000 before we got in. We raised another, $500,000 or so while we were in the program. And then we immediately raised our Series A actually right when we left 500. We got our term sheet for our a week after the demo day for 500, which was actually sort of unprecedented. Most people, wait longer, but we specifically knew what we wanted to do with the timeout in California, and we used it to launch our second market, which was San Francisco, and then to really, do the Sand Hill Road circuit, in Silicon Valley to raise money for our Series A.
So, Michael, talk to me about the challenges of being a founder, right? So, when you started, it was you, Vadim, and you said Danny and Jeff, right?
Yeah.
And now, what's the total size of the company?
Well, we've got about 40 people full time.
40 people full time.
And about 50 or so total on payroll.
Wow. So, what have you had to learn over the past 4 years as a CEO in terms of growing and scaling your company? What have been some of your biggest challenges and hurdles?
I think you learn new stuff every day. I think the most important things are around having just a terrific core team. At the beginning, it's all about having people who can just kind of pitch in and do whatever needs to be done, and then over time, then you need to find people who are just best in class in the specific areas that they focus on.
How do you assess that? When you interview, how do you know that this person, what are some of the things that you look for?
It's a good question. I mean, sometimes it's a matter of, I remember like when we hired our head of finance, we actually had a company that was subleasing from us, and we brought their head of finance into the interview to ask questions because I didn't know what to ask, and I figured she could help us size them up.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's hard to know exactly, and it's funny, like salespeople are particularly tough,
Why are they tough?
Because they're so good at selling themselves. So it's like, are they really good or are they just saying they're good?
And then when you get the numbers, they don't meet the numbers. They have reasons why they didn't.
Yeah, well, I was on a panel last week, and somebody asked a question about how do you hire salespeople, and my number one piece of feedback was, get their W-2s.
See how much money they've made.
See how much money they've made. At the end of the day, a salesperson is paid to make money. They should be proud of how much they've made, and if they're not, then they probably aren't a good fit.
Got it. So if someone were to ask you between hiring top engineers versus top salespeople, what do you think is harder?
Wow. I'd say, wow, that's a really good question. They're both really hard. It's harder to find great engineers, but I think that once you find them and you vet them, and maybe it's easier to test an engineer's capabilities, they're more likely to succeed. Whereas a salesperson is maybe a little easier to find, but harder to know how successful they'll be off the bat.
When you look at the commercial real estate space, what sort of trends do you see happening going forward with regards to technology?
Well, I think the trend that we think about the most is around the impact on technology in data, because we're a data company, we're a tech company, but we're also a data company. And we think about really data transparency. And we're trying to bring transparency to the commercial real estate space and to the information that people use to do transactions. And I think we're seeing a real increase in transparency. We hope that we're at the forefront of that, but regardless, the reality I think is going to be longer term that all the data that people are used to having to get deals done is going to be pretty easily accessible, regardless of who you are in that transaction that you're working on. And as a result, it means that if you're going to succeed, information arbitrage is not going to be the reason that you succeed. It's going to be creativity that helps you succeed.
Because information is going to be so accessible with all these platforms that we have.
Yeah, and it becomes more about how you use that information to do the best deal that you can do. Or how do you take advantage of that data to look at what other people are doing and use that to your advantage and really be creative about it. And if you're buying a building, maybe you're not just underwriting that building to look at how much money you can make off the office space. Maybe you're taking the bottom floors of the building, gutting them, making them double-story retail and getting twice as much rent, or moving the lobby from one area to another, or whatever the case may be, but really rethinking how you do that deal.
And your perception, your view is that CompStak helps this because it makes data more accessible to the decision makers.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing is that this transparency in information means that deals get done much more quickly because there's no longer as big of a spread between bid and ask. If the seller or the lessor knows what the rent should be for the market or what the price should be to sell the building, and the buyer or the lessee knows what the rent should be or what the price should be, then they can come together much more quickly. And that's better for everybody. If you're leasing space, for instance, you're a landlord, every day that space sits on the market costs you a lot of money.
It does.
And if you're a tenant, if you're a CEO of a company like I am and you're trying to lease space, every day that you spend working on trying to get that deal done is time you're not using to run your business. So the difference in price, whether it's another 50 cents a square foot or something like that, nobody cares. What people care about is getting the deal done quickly and moving on to the next thing.
Makes a lot of sense. We're almost out of time. Any last words?
I don't know. I don't think I've got a lot to say. It depends who the audience is. I guess it's the whole world, right?
Oh, well, a lot of people watch the show are entrepreneurs or potential entrepreneurs, besides the real estate people. So if you have any words for fellow entrepreneurs, what would it be?
I would say, it's a lot of work. It's a hard slog. Don't expect it to be easy. There's no such thing as like an overnight success, no matter how much you think that it is. And even things that seem really simple and viral and instant, they're not. There's a lot of hard work and convincing and cold calling or whatever the case may be that's being done on the back end to make things happen. So don't worry that if you're not having things take off instantly, you can make them take off.
Got it. Thank you so much, Michael.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. Hi, Danny. How are you doing?
Great.
So tell me a little bit about what you do at CompStak.
I am the Vice President of CompStak Exchange, which means that my team handles the relationship with all the exchange members, brokers, appraisers, researchers.
Got it. And you were with Michael and Vadim when they started the company 4 years ago, right? So can you kind of tell us the difference from when you guys started to what it is today?
Sure. When we started, we were in a tiny little office in this same building. It was just me, Michael, and Vadim sharing one desk. And we had at that time only one market launch that we covered. There was Manhattan and a handful of customers. And a lot of change since then. We've expanded. Now we're in 17 markets. We have thousands of members, lots of customers, and of course a much, much bigger team than when we started.
When you started, did you think the company would get to this size within the time frame?
No, definitely not. I didn't know what to expect. We're all taking a risk when you join a company that's so young, and I think things turn out to be really good.
And why did you decide to take the risk?
What
was compelling about the idea, or Michael, or Vadim, or the team?
I thought it was a great company. The concept was so appealing to me when I joined. I knew that it was groundbreaking and that we were going to be successful. But more than that, I believed in the team. I met up with Michael and Vadim, and I just really wanted to work with these guys. When you work for a startup, it's not just about the idea and the execution. It's also about the people who are within the company, and you really have to believe in the people you're working with, and this is pretty much what made me join.
Cool. Thank you so much for your time, Dan. It was a
pleasure
meeting you.
Thanks so much.
Hi, Carolyn. Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you.
So tell me, what do you do for CompStak?
I am in customer success. Okay. So what that means is I'm an account manager, and I manage the relationships that we already have on the enterprise side, which are the folks that buy our data. So real estate investors, basically.
Got it. And how long have you worked for the company?
About 3 months.
What were you doing prior to working at CompStak?
I was in relationship management at JP Morgan in their mutual fund business.
Got it. So why the transition to a startup? Because JP Morgan obviously is a huge established company and CompStak is a startup. So why the transition?
Right. Well, I finished my analyst program at JP Morgan, and I wanted to do something totally different. And so when I was contacted by a recruiter here, I thought at the age of 25, there wasn't a better time to jump into something completely different. I came and I saw the atmosphere here, and I think I decided that I wanted to experience a startup.
Got it. So what has been the biggest difference from when you used to work at JP Morgan versus working at CompStak?
Besides dress code, I think
What's the dress code here versus do you have to wear suit and tie to work at JP? Like what's
JP
the
Morgan was business formal. Here you can wear kind of whatever you want.
Okay.
I'm only dressed up today because I'm off to see a client in a minute.
Okay.
I think the biggest difference is the type of stress. I think at JP Morgan, culture in itself was very stressful. People were very formal. Attention to detail was very important. Everyone was very competitive with each other. And I think it's not less stressful here, but it's a different kind of stress. At a small business, I feel that kind of the weight of how the business does overall is more on your shoulders. You're more impacted directly. Whereas being a part of a bigger enterprise like JP Morgan, if you have a bad quarter, you don't really feel it. Whereas here, if you get hit pretty hard, you kind of take that burden on your own shoulders.
Got it. Thank you so much for your time, Carla.
Yes, of course.
Chairs, and, but this is it. Everybody's sort of at the same type of setup. Got some, kind of little desks, but this is our sales team right here. Well, it's kind of spread out. Some people are out at meetings or in conference rooms, but sales and finance. And then over here we've got what we call our exchange team. So these are the people who are responsible for building relationships within the brokerage community. And so they're often on the road as well. Actually, Julie, who heads up our expansion team right now, is in London. We actually are launching in London today for our pioneer. Thank you. So our pioneer members, which are the people who get our markets going on the brokerage side, just are starting to use the platform today, and then we're rolling it out in April to the rest of the brokerage population in London. They call it the property professionals. And we also have our marketing team here and recruitment. And then this is some expansion space over here. So we'll fill those desks up with some new people. These rows here are tech and product. So these are the people who actually, build the software, design it, make it look nice, make it work, and make sure that the site doesn't go down. And this is our data team. So they're responsible for making sure that everything gets into the system, cleaning up the data, validating the information, and processing it and loading in lots of data into the system. We're bringing in, on average, over 30,000 lease transactions a month. Actually, last month we brought in about 53,000, and we're probably going to exceed that this month.
And how many markets are you guys in besides London? Because you're launching it today.
Sure, aside from London, we're in 17 major markets in the U.S. Some people actually count it more like 25 because we combine some of the big metro areas. So, like for instance, L.A. we're in the Inland Empire and Orange County as well. D.C. we're in Northern Virginia and Maryland. So we cover most of the major markets in the U.S. and now go international to large markets. We have interns that work here when they're in, although we don't have any interns right now today. But we've got some conference rooms. You can see we've got people meeting right now. And some game area. So we've got a ping pong table here, foosball. I'm not that good, but I'm all right. I mean, I play enough that I'm not terrible, but I'm not super competitive. Darts has tended to be the most popular sport in the CompStak office these days. We do, yeah. We haven't had one in a while. It's probably due for another one. But there's often a game on FIFA going on. Got the Xbox hooked up. So that's basically it. And this is our kitchen. Very exciting. Today is a big day at CompStak because it's Tuesday, which means the snack on Tuesdays the new snacks come in. So people are very excited about that. Hence, stuff is pretty well stocked right now. But give it a few days and that'll be gone.
By the way, I heard you also have a dog, right?
I do, yeah. He's here almost every day. He's not today because I've got a meeting tonight on my way home. But this is the evidence of him. This is his bowls. This is an award he won. Every year we do a retreat. We call it CompStak, And we have the Vadimis at CompStak, which are named after my co-founder Vadim, who gives out the awards every year, and everybody wins an award for something. So Squeakers won the award last year for most likely to crash your meeting, because he literally sits in on every single meeting in the office, in and out of conference rooms all day long. So that's his award. That's basically.
Oh, one more thing. What's this over here?
That's the gong. That's for when we close a sale, or something big happens when we launch a market, or something like that. So we ring the gong. It's incredibly loud. It's a pretty big one. And you asked about the shot ski.
Yes,
I found the official CompStak branded shot ski.
Oh wow.
Which is so yeah.
Nice office.
That's basically it. This is where the magic happens.
Awesome. Thank you. We just completed a tour of the CompStak corporate headquarters here in New York City. We want to thank their whole crew for letting us be here. We want to thank Michael, Danny, Carolyn, and their whole crew. If you want to learn more about their company, you can go to CompStak.com. If you want to be a guest on our show or learn more about our show or send us some feedback, please send us an email at show@AnySizeDeals.com. Thank you, and that's the last word.
No matter how you choose to live, be yourself. Cause your authenticity is a gift, so be appreciated.
Gotta be yourself, be authentic, and you see that you be free as well. Gotta be yourself, gotta be yourself, be authentic, and you see that you be free as well.
Or you really go find it out. Your heart will tell you what life's about. Don't believe what your mind will shout. I'm optimistic, no time for doubt. I focus on the good things in life, so I'm attracting the things I like. You can learn from everything I write, but do whatever you think is right. You will